Alrighty, well, I'll tell you all another story um, of a situation I contended with um, back quite a few years ago now. This goes back again to when I was driving a taxi cab. Um, and yeah, I had quite a time driving a taxi cab. There's Rocky. He's asleep there. He's having a good sleep, as you can see. He's nice to look at. Awful cute little guy. But he is. He's really cute. He's having a good sleep. He's had his second breakfast already, and this is his second nap that he's having after his second breakfast. Um, anyway, I'll tell you the story. I was driving a taxi cab, and I was actually on my way home. I was going to get a few hours sleep before I had to start picking up people early in the morning to go to work. So I was technically off duty. Um, and we were technically shut down for the night. Anyway, I was coming up the street. I was passing by the beverage room of the Perth Hotel, and on Foster Street in Perth, and I was heading home to the Royal Bank building, which is where I lived. And I just dropped off what I thought was the last of the drunk people, of the night. And I was going to go home and get some shut-eye. Anyway, I'm passing by the beverage room at the Perth Hotel, and these two men flag me down. They get into the car, and they tell me they want to stop at the Mac's Milk Store first, and then they want to continue on to an address in town. So I agree to take them to the Mac's Milk Store. That was like a corner store, like a 7-Eleven or that type of a thing, that idea. An all-night, like 24-hour type corner store, I take them up there. There was a franchise of them here. Now they're called Circle K, those stores, but back then they were called Mac's Milk. Anyway, every little town had at least one of them at that time. Anyway, I took them up to the Mac's Milk Store, and the 1984 Buick LeSabre I was driving, I think 84 was the first year that they went away from the old mechanical push-button radio to a digital electronic radio in the cars, in those cars. Because I had an 83 Buick LeSabre that I owned at one time, and it still had the old push-button radio, the old-fashioned radio. But anyway, the 84 Buick LeSabre I was driving had the electronic radio in it, and of course, it was the clock and the radio display were the same. And you could either have it set up that it would show the radio station or it would show the clock. I had it set up that it showed the radio station. And whenever I had a customer get in the car, I'd just turn the radio down because I didn't think it was right to make them listen to whatever I was interested in listening to. If they wanted to listen to the radio, I'd turn it on and I would turn it to whatever station they were interested in and listening to, I would turn it on to that for them. But as far as my own personal preferences go, I didn't impose that on my customers. So I just turned the volume down. So the display for the station was still up there. If I turned the radio right off, then the time would have been up there. But I just turned the volume down, so the display was still there to show what radio station I was listening to. And of course, the radio station I was listening to was 101.1. So, that was that. So that's what it said. It said 1001. So it looked, if you thought that was the clock, it looked like it was 10 o'clock at night. But of course it wasn't. It was actually like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, And anyway, these guys get in the car. As we're pulling into the parking lot at Mac's Milk, Now, I had one guy in the back seat sitting directly behind me, and I had the other guy sitting in the front seat with me on the passenger side. The guy sitting behind me, he asked me, he said, "Hey, what time is it?" And I told him it was 3 o'clock in the morning. And he looked at the display on my radio, and to him that looked like it was 10 o'clock. Now, he had told me after they got in the car that they had been dropping acid and drinking tequila all night. And so the two of them were completely out of their heads. Anyway, you can imagine dropping acid and drinking tequila, the frame of mind that would put you into. Anyway, he started yelling at me, "You're an effing liar. You're an effing liar. It is not 3 o'clock in the morning. I can see on your clock it says that it's 10 o'clock, not 3 o'clock. And I said, "That's the radio station." I said, "It is 3 o'clock in the morning." Anyway, when we stopped in the parking lot there, his friend, who was sitting beside me, took a hold of me and started shoving me, just driving me hard against the door panel of the car, against the driver's door panel, and screaming in my face, "You effing liar, you effing liar. You lied to my friend, you effing liar." And I managed to fish we carried a wooden squeegee handle in the car for defense, for self-defense. I managed to fish that out of where it was. Well, he was really driving me hard up against the door panel. I managed to fish that out of there, and I brought it down. I brought it across, and I give him a whack. I hit him across his neck, basically, is what I did. I hit him across the right side of his neck, kind of his upper shoulder and right side of his neck. And when I did that stopped it. Then he started to scream, and he flung the door open, and he ran out of the car. And he just disappeared into the darkness, basically, went up a side street and disappeared. Well, now, the guy in the back seat, he pulls out a hunting knife and he puts it up against my throat. So he's now sitting behind me, and he's got this knife up against my throat. And I can feel the blade of it against my throat. And it was sharp. It was actually cutting into my skin a little bit. So I could feel that sharp kind of a pain that you get, And I knew all he had to do was draw that across my throat, and he would kill me. That'd be it. I'd be dead. Because I bleed out before anybody could help me. Anyway, this guy, he says, "You just lied to me about what time it is, and now you've hurt my friend. And I'm going to cut your effing throat." And I was scared, but I knew not to show it. Because with people like that, you can't ever show fear, because fear is weakness, and weakness will get you killed with these people. So in as calm and even a tone as I could muster, I said to him, I said, "Put that thing away before you get yourself into trouble." And when I said that, he pulled the knife away from my throat, and he slapped me on the shoulder, and he laughed. And he said, "I like you. You've got balls." He said, "You're all right. You've got balls." Well, he was going to get out of the car, and I was just happy to be rid of him, But what happened was the guy in the Max Milk store, the clerk in there, saw what was happening outside, and he called the Perth police. And of course, who comes up but my old friend Dan Sisti, who didn't like me because I had thrown his son out of the gas station for threatening me a few weeks before that. And as we worked out of a gas station, anyway, Dan Sisti came up. He was the one who got the call. And again, I had several bad run-ins with Dan Sisti in the time I was driving a taxi cab. But he came up anyway. And, and he was pretty ugly with me. Anyway, and he pretty much said it was my own fault what had happened and all that. Anyway, he gave the guy a ride home, is what he did. The guy did pulled the knife on me to put it to my throat. He gave the guy a ride home. And he told me to get home and park the car, and he better not see me out again that night, or he was going to see to it that I lost my license and that I did some time in jail. So anyway, that was the story there. Anyway, that's what happened. That's another story about things that I had to cope with anyway in my hometown. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. There's Rocky. Rocky's a real blessing, I'll tell you. I'd be lost without that little guy. He's having a good sleep. Anyway, we'll see you later.